Good evening, Mayor Cheney and council members. Staff is bringing before you revisions to our current taxicab ordinance found in Title IX of City Code. And the principal emphasis on this to bring before you tonight is mostly on public safety. Under the draft ordinance before you in Section 5.4, every applicant that is new will now be required to submit fingerprints. Previously, under the current ordinance, what would happen was we would get a driver's license check and photograph from the city clerk. We would do a name check and a driving history, and that would be mostly the sum of our background. Submitting fingerprints would correspond with the rest of our license under city code, and it will also give us a thorough background so we can now perform a state and regional check on those that are applying for licenses. That background check is also now delineated in Section 511 of the new draft ordinance. In Section 5.4 also, we are bringing forth to tonight consideration of a vehicle inspection for every vehicle annually that is used in taxicab services within the city. And we're using the standard that's set by the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. This is what the driver's license or the driver's educational system uses within the state, and we feel that conforming to that would ensure the safety of passengers as they're being transported. Section 5.8 was added to the draft ordinance as a result of discussions during the joint council meeting last Monday. If approved, smoking will be prohibited at all times. Any passenger is present in the taxicab and having the provisions of a taxicab service. Contacting the owners, I found that 4 of the 5 already have a no smoking policy within their practice, and one taxicab service is opposed and will probably be testifying later to inform you that this would probably effective service. Section 5.9 has been added, which requires fees to be displayed at all times in the taxicab. It also says if requested, fees would also be disclosed to those seeking clarifications and those calling in to find out what the rates are. One service already displays the fares currently. The 3 others I contacted said this would be no problem to display the fares. And then the limo service stated this was a concern. It would affect the ambience of his service in the limo by displaying these. So discussing it with him, he does require prepayment. And based on that, we added words within the draft ordinance that you have before you that exempts this prepayment because there would be no necessity showing the fare rates if you've already paid for it. The dollar amount for reportable accidents have been updated in Section 510 just to correspond with current state monetary amounts. And then we get into Section 511, the denial of license. This has the most modifications before you. In the current ordinance, disqualifying offenses were mostly related to traffic statutes and felony offenses. And no matter what the violation was, there was only a 3-year period. What we bring before you tonight is in Section 511A 1 and 2, that is a permanent disqualifying offenses within the felony if someone has pleaded guilty to, admitted to, or been found guilty and a withheld judgment. Out of that, we felt that those are severe offenses and would be a public safety to those passengers if we did allow permitted licensees to drive our community members around. Taking into consideration other disqualifying offenses we found in Section 511B, outlined those that we felt after a 5-year prohibition or exclusion period, then we would allow those to apply and be given a license. That way, it mostly corresponds to the same offenses in the daycare. Section 511 also has 3 new sections, C, D, and E, and these set penalties providing false information in the process when they're applying, not disclosing or complying with the rules of the ordinance that is in the draft as it's written now, and then also if the licensee's driving privileges are suspended while they are issued by the city, we felt that there should be some kind of penalty set for that. We do note that these disqualifiers or penalties are upon appeal to you, so they can bring them to you if they feel that they would not adhere to what we do as a staff recommendation. There are some additional expenses to the business owners. The first is the inspection fee. That varies, but on average, it's between $70 and $75 a year. And then for those new applicants, there will be a $30 additional fingerprint fee, which is the cost that we have to fingerprint and send those down to the state of Idaho, the Bureau of Criminal Intelligence. These are our recommendations, and I'll be open to any questions if you have them at this time.
Thank you, Chief. Just for clarification, you were talking about the criteria for denial of license, and I see that we have that listed as Section 5-12 now. Has there been a modification of this? We have 511, at least in the hard copy I'm looking at, 511 investigation.
It is 512.
512. So that's, I have an accurate copy.
Because we added 5.8 in.
Yeah, we added a 5.8, so that moved
Okay.
that to 12.
Okay, thank you. Council members have any questions for the Chief? Yes, Tom?
I just wanted to be clear. So 5.9, we will continue to, or make sure that people are posting their rates. I started to read it the wrong way, I think, and then I was hearing you, and I just want to be clear that, yes, we will be posting the rates.
Yeah, if passed, 5.9 will require the taxi cab services other than limo prepaid to
Okay.
have their fares posted in the cabs.
The last time I was in a taxi cab, I think the driver kept hitting some button and the numbers kept going up, and I don't think I paid
It
the
wouldn't
right.
have been a Moscow, Idaho.
No,
cab,
it was
though.
in
No.
it was in Rome, and I couldn't speak the language, and it was bad.
How
Scene.
many lira is that?
Yeah, exactly, euros. And then the other comment is also from that experience. Even with no smoking in the cab, it still smelled like we were in a smoking area. And my preference on 5.8 would be to end the sentence after the word times and just strike any passengers present during the provision of taxi cab service, just so that a rider doesn't walk into a cab right after somebody has just finished smoking. And my preference would be that we just leave taxi cabs as being non-smoking. Did you guys talk about that
Yeah,
as a
that-
possibility?
Dan,
Or can that be discussed? I guess we
I
can.
think that's
And
good
share
for
that
discussion,
meeting,
and it sounds like that we're going to have testimony to that effect as well, according to
Okay.
Chief Duke. So,
Okay.
but yeah,
Topic of conversation at the
It was.
committee meeting you chaired.
correct. And I think actually Walter might have brought it up because it related to our non-smoking ordinance in the bars, and how it was done as not only as a overall health issue, but a health of the employees issue. So, we thought, well, could they smoke if both parties agreed to it, and then you got into too many, what is this, a verbal contract or something like that? So basically just, that was the cleanest way to take care of it, was just to ban it when any passenger is present.
Any other-
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim or Walter or Sue.
Well,
Walter?
if I may, Tom is correct. If you have a driver that smokes, and while he's waiting for fares, he's smoking in the car, and then picks up a fare, then the passenger is certainly going to be subjected to it. Whether or not the council wishes to ban smoking in taxi cabs at all times would require the driver to step outside and smoke, as
Yeah.
employees do in this building, that work in this building. I have a question on another item, if I may. Chief, is the vehicle check a one-time or an annual check?
The way we wrote it, it was annual. It'll be once a year during the application process.
Can you show me, okay, it does say an Idaho annual driver education vehicle check.
Yes.
So that's where the annual's picked up.
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions?
There are several business owners or representatives that are here tonight.
Thank you, Chief. I will invite their comments. This isn't a public hearing, but if any of you who are present tonight would like to speak to this matter, please come forward to the lectern, state your name and address, and if you think it prudent to do so, you might state your affiliation as a taxi operator or otherwise. Please.
Excuse me. Mayor and member of the council, I am Joel Jaragito, owner of ABC Limousine Service. I have a few concerns and questions, if I may address you guys.
Please.
As far as the background check is concerned, when I got my application and my drivers got their application, it was a full background check through the Moscow Police Department. Adding in fingerprint fees, he's already stated that's another $30. My business has an extremely high overhead, and that's just adding more to my bills, my driver's bills. I don't understand where fingerprints are going to change anything as far as the background check if it's a complete background check through NCIS. Is that the correct terminology, or whoever it is? The other thing, too, is the vehicle inspection. I run a top-notch service. My vehicles are in prime shape. My question, again, is who's going to pay for these fees to have an annual vehicle inspection? Where do I get that done at? Is it a certification? I'm not exactly clear on that. Also, Chief already explained about the fees. I think that's been handled appropriately. In smoking, we already have a policy of no smoking. And that would be my concerns. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
A question, Madam Mayor?
Sir, would you be willing to stand for a question? Walter, please.
Regarding the smoking,
Yes.
comment on whether or not, I've got a feeling we're going to put some type of no smoking in effect here. Comment on your feeling regarding banning smoking when both the driver and passenger are present and totally banning it in the vehicles so that the driver cannot smoke without a passenger. Am I clear? I mean,
Yes, you're very clear. I agree with it 100%, because I have been in taxicabs in Moscow where they had been smoking previously, and I just don't agree with it on a professional and personal level. So we already have a company policy, no smoking by the driver or passengers, bottom line.
okay, thank you.
My name's George Hudson. I own Pegasus Taxi. Address is 1751 North Polk, extension number 26. I am the one that wants to have smoking. You've already taken it out of the bars, and when the people come out of there, first thing they want to do is have a cigarette. And if I have to wait for them to finish a cigarette, you're talking 5-10 minutes out of my time. Plus, that's at least one more group of people I can't get out of there and home safely. Because, like I say, you've already taken it out of the bars. First thing they want when they get done drinking is a cigarette. And I smoke. All but 2 of my drivers smoke. We do not want to be restricted like that. To me, it's our right to be able to smoke in our vehicle. And that is my vehicle. When I'm out driving, I want to be able to have my cigarette. And like I say, as far as health issues, I think you're putting more of a economic restriction on me than anything else, because you've already seen what it does to the bars. People are not going to the bars because they have to walk away from their drink to have a cigarette. Nobody knows what they're what's getting put in your drink when you're gone. You can look at Washington State. I know of 2 bars in the town of Snohomish that were open for over 100 years. They put a ban on smoking in the bars. Those 2 bars are closed. Happened within 4 months of the smoking ban. Mingles, their business has dropped considerably since your smoking ban. That's my main concern. Now, as far as the safety inspections, I agree with those. I do the work on my own vehicles. Somebody might see something that I miss, or my drivers don't tell me about. I agree with the annual check on that, My whole family drives. I want my vehicle safe. But as far as the smoking goes, I have to disagree. There are other cabs that don't smoke. They don't allow smoking. Let them use them, the ones that are complaining. I can tell you I've had 2 complaints in the 3 years I've had the cab about the smoke. And normally we just air it out and they're fine with it. But I've had 2 complaints all this time. I don't feel it's a major issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Okay.
Yes.
Did anyone have a question for him? No?
A
Walter?
question for the city attorney,
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Oh.
Okay.
if I may.
Please.
Randy, a comment was made that it's my cab regarding the smoking. And that takes me to the question of whether or not we should consider banning smoking in those vehicles by the drivers when they don't have passengers. Do you have an opinion from a legal standpoint?
Not really. If the city can regulate taxi cab services, they should be able to regulate what the function is. I wrote this as sort of a compromise between people who don't want any smoking and people who would like to smoke. And one of the considerations that we had was whether or not it would be appropriate to say that if you gave permission as a passenger for the driver to smoke, they could smoke, but then that puts somebody in a position of having to tell a fee and a potential tip that they can't do something that they want to do. So they might just say, sure, go ahead and smoke to try to, because of some other pressures. And so we can write it any way people want to because we can regulate how taxi cabs function within the city.
Okay.
And I don't think that deprives anybody of all economic power, and it also isn't land. So I think we've got the authority to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Are there others here tonight who'd like to speak to this matter? Now, Dan?
I have a question for Chief Duke.
Sure.
I think we talked about it at committee, but I can't recall right off the top of my head, but there are several places in town where they can get the annual inspection.
Correct. The only requirement for the applicable inspection form we'll have is that it has to be done by an ASE certified mechanic. Any of those businesses that have ASE mechanics can complete the form and give it to the owner, who can bring it to the city clerk.
I think that even includes Jiffy Lube, so as far as I know, so.
Dan, if I just follow up on your question then, so the first gentleman who spoke from ABC Limo was talking about unsure of where those inspections could be done. Is that sufficiently clearly called out, you think, in this ordinance so that people are aware of where such inspections could take place?
We contacted 2 of the many businesses just to get the fees, since they were mostly close. We would go and make a detailed list, but most of the businesses will have the ASE logo on their windows to state that they're certified.
Okay. And then he also was talking about the issue of fingerprinting relative to the other background checks that are going on. Would you care to respond to that?
Sure. Like I said previously, when we did receive an application, we'd get a copy of the driver's license. We'd run a driver's history check through the state of issue, and then we could only be limited to using our own records that we have within house. That is the complete background check we can do at this point. If we allow the fingerprints, and as in Section 511 now states that you're giving us the authority to send fingerprints to Idaho State Police, the Idaho State Police will now be authorized to put that card into the NCIC and check for criminal histories.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions? Tom?
I had a question about the fees. There's a fee question that was raised, and I'm trying to figure out, we wouldn't actually implement new fees until the budget fee hearing is resolved in that new, isn't that the case? Isn't that how the timing of this would go? So this would pass, assuming this passes, then we would have fee changes that would take place with the fee resolution.
Gary? Or
We already have fees for background checks and
Sure.
fingerprints and those sorts of things. Any fee change would be brought through with the fee resolution and would take place as soon as the new license period would come up.
So it's not a fee change, but but we're making people responsible for the fingerprinting fee. I guess that was the question that was
Just be applying the
raised.
current fee resolution.
Okay.
It's Walter?
To clarify, the fees that are talked about in this proposed ordinance change are already in place. It's just a matter of applying them.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if I might, we're not regulating the fees mentioned in section 5.9. I mean, as far as we're concerned, the taxi service can charge whatever they're going to charge. The city is not, and has no desire to regulate those fees.
Fares, you mean?
Fares.
Well, it's listed as fees.
Yeah, it is listed
in
as
section
fees.
5.9.
Fares, should be fares.
It should say fares. That would be better
Randy, would you like
for
to comment?
clarity.
Can change it.
I guess we could change
I
that with the
think it's a
motion.
good suggestion, to go to fares
I
for
think so, too.
5.9.
Fares, change those fees to fares.
And what would you like to do next, council? Tim?
I'll move that we approve the draft taxicab license ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary as it is written.
Second.
Did you want that language changed from fees to fares in 5.9? As the council had
5.9.
discussed?
Yes,
Yes?
please.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we have a motion from Tim, a second from Dan. Tom, you had a comment?
And I would like the mover and the shaker, the seconder, to consider ending the sentence early and just have no smoking at all times within the cabs. So I'd like to have that
Are
discussion.
you
I
moving, you're just
I'm
discussion?
I would like to see that added or that modified by the,
You proposing an amendment?
well, I could
Or a
propose an
change- or a
amendment. I was just,
secondary-
I'm just
Yeah, okay, there's a
Discussion,
discussion
right.
point.
Discussion.
Sue?
of
You-
that.
Yeah, I have some problems. I mean, I don't smoke. I don't like to get into taxi cabs that are smoking, that have smoke in them. Although I can't imagine going very far anywhere in Moscow where I couldn't handle it for 5 minutes. But it is a private cab. It's not a public bus paid for by public funds. And it seems that if the passenger and the driver both want to be able to smoke, I don't see a problem with that. So you might be able to say smoking in taxi cab shall be prohibited at all times unless by passenger request or something like that, so that if a passenger and the driver agree, they're adults, it's a privately owned vehicle used for public service, but I applaud the limo service. I would much rather use him or someone who doesn't have a smoking thing, but I think someone in their own business using their own vehicle and the passenger wants to smoke and they both want to smoke, I don't see regulating them that much.
Okay, Tom?
So I guess I'm hearing you say going at the other direction, and I'm trying to cut it off and have no smoking at all times. So even the
Right.
driver's not smoking, and you're
Right.
saying make it looser than what's being suggested
I'm
here.
just saying if the passenger requests to be able to smoke and the driver wants to let them smoke, I think that's fine. So I don't know how to word it that way, but I would prefer that they not be smoking, but
Walter?
Well, my only comment would be to reiterate what I think I heard the city attorney say, which is if the driver really if the driver doesn't smoke, doesn't want the passenger to smoke, tells him no, he's kissing his tip goodbye,
Well,
possibly.
that's true. Or the passenger wants to smoke and he tells him no.
You can blame it on us.
Yes.
It's more convenient to blame it on us.
Yeah, so,
As far as Tom's request of the maker and seconder, I'm waiting to see what they agree to or don't.
Tim?
I like the ordinance the way it's written. Quite a discussion at Public Works Finance combined committees a week ago on the smoking issue. I think prohibiting smoking when there's a passenger in the cab is appropriate. Unoccupied cab, if the driver wants to smoke, I think that's his right. If a passenger doesn't like it, I guess he can get out and call another taxicab service. So I'm prepared to accept the ordinance as it's written, except for the wordage on fare.
okay.
Still take that
I'm
position.
agreeing with Tim. I think that we discussed it last week pretty well, and I think that makes it, I'm willing to accept it as it is.
Is there further discussion before voting?
Well, I guess this is a compromise, so if it's not made any stricter, I guess I could go for that.
Other discussion? Okay. So we have Tim's motion and Dan's second to approve the taxi cab license ordinance as written with the modification in Section 5-9 pertaining to language about fees changed to the word fares. With that modification, the recommendation for approval, we'll start the roll call vote with you, Walter.
Aye.
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 Okay, so that motion carries, and that's going to be ordinance number 2011-09, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, providing for the amendment of Moscow City Code Title 9, Chapter 5, providing for a background investigation of taxicab license applicants, requiring fingerprints and vehicle inspections, banning smoking during taxicab service, requiring taxicab customer fees to be prominently displayed, enumerating disqualifying crimes, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law. Thanks all for your work on that. Thank you, Chief, for your excellent presentation.